Hey there guys, it's Metro, and today we are back with another video on some new affixes in patch 7.2. We have a new affix at the level 4 this time, which is the first one. There's 4 new total. We've already covered 2, both of them were at 7. This is at the 4 level this time. It is called Busting. No, I'm just kidding, it's called Bursting. When slain, non-boss enemies explode, causing all players to suffer 10% of their maximum health and damage over 4 seconds. This effect stacks. So you can already see some danger just by reading that. And then at the 7 level, we have Skittish, which has always been in the game, but there was a small change to it. Threat reduction has been lowered to 75% from 80%. So we're probably not going to talk about Skittish again. Just know that it's a little bit more forgiving, but everybody's doing more damage anyway, and especially some tanks are struggling to keep up with that. So effectively, if you don't have any type of real damage, like any type of a rogue or a hunter or something like that to help you with threat, it's still going to be a pretty difficult challenge. So regardless, I think this is one of the easiest weeks ever conceived, and I'll explain to you why. It is the third affix is also Tyrannical, which is the boss damage one. That was also changed. We haven't talked about that much, but it has changed as well to 15% increased damage instead of 20%, but that's not something that really matters that much. Now, immediately, you're going to see the busting affix on the, of course, like the scan there, which shows you the 3 affixes, but also on my debuff slot. And the way it works is anytime a mob dies, you take 10% of your health over 4 seconds. So that alone is not very dangerous. And I can't seem to tell, but it does seem like we're able to mitigate it as well. So I've already tried bops. It's definitely not physical. I can't get it off with physical. I don't know if it's magical though, so maybe you can get it off with something like spell warding or any type of immunity. I don't know if it actually removes it or if it just forgets the damage. I'm not sure, but what I have learned is that there's some packs in some 5-mans that are incredibly dangerous. And I do Darkheart all the time, obviously, but you're going to actually see why this one especially is a great example of what busting can do. It's pretty dangerous, like those blood packs especially. So you would see something very similar in, say, Eye of Azshara, those types of packs in Eye of Azshara. Also in Lower Karazhan as well, the same deal. So yeah, it could be... it's something that really forces you to change the way you play. So let's talk about the way I'm playing currently. I have a full healing setup, including healing trinkets, talents, and everything like that. So assuming that this was actually going to be pretty tough. But of course, I overestimated it. And this is, even a plus 12. But it really feels like there's nothing going on here. And I'm going to tell you why. So Skittish, the only challenge of this is the tank. Everybody else just basically does their own thing, and if they get threat, then they have to deal with that. But as the healer, it doesn't really affect me, and even as a tank, it really doesn't affect them either. Sometimes you have to taunt, but especially as a death grip, or a death grip, especially as a blood death knight with death grip, or a prop paladin with that much damage, I kind of just don't care about that. And then, of course, when you're killing these mobs as a tank, you can easily survive the damage. Like, it does seem to do, an even amount of damage to everyone. So I don't know if mitigation matters. But regardless, especially as a Blood DK in this group, yeah, he's never at any real danger. Like, he's not worried about that as I might be, the healer. But if you do it right, it doesn't really do anything. So here's the coolest part about this affix, okay? It really punishes poor coordination, but does nothing to... It really doesn't reward you in any way, but it doesn't complicate any packs either. So, for example, in some weeks, the pack fighting itself is actually incredibly dangerous. Because, you're fighting these things, it has the mechanics that the mobs have typically, but they also have the affix, for like bolstering or sanguine or something like that. It changes the way you approach the pack. But on this week, it really doesn't, because usually, you're fighting mobs in a short period. Like, you're not fighting 8+ mobs constantly, unless you're in Karazhan, I suppose. So you just heal afterwards. And, some healers have a great way to deal with this. Like, Holy Paladin, probably not the best in terms of dealing with this. I feel like the person who would struggle the most with this would be Discipline, because they really struggle to heal after mobs are dead. But, not really. They do have some benefit of out-of-combat healing from Shadow Mend. But, yeah, I think Resto Druid, even Resto Shaman, Holy Priest, all healers, really. Any healers with any type of nice, especially Holy Priest and Resto Druid, some nice hot healing afterwards. And that's why I have, of course, Virtue, or not, what's it called? Beacon of Mercy. Very good. It kind of mitigates the, because it's still a dot. It's a 4-second dot effectively. So any type of dot healing that you can mitigate with hot healing is very good. So I think, you know, Resto Druid is going to be among the best for this. I really like Holy Paladin as well because I can quickly, you know, obviously heal people up. But there is going to be a few cases here where, yeah, it's pretty dangerous. And without any real CDs, you know, I don't know about mitigation as well. So if there was a question that I would like to have answered over the week, it would be that. Have you guys found ways to mitigate this? Is there any type of way to mitigate it at all? Can you or can you not use a defensive CD to reduce the damage taken? I don't know. I don't know if that's the case or if it's just always going to do 10% of your health. It's hard to tell, you know, of course, because blood decay is not necessarily the most, you know, they don't mitigate the most damage, so it's difficult to see when he's taking health, if he's taking the exact same as me. But I can tell you this is a great fucking week for blood decay. Having Vampiric Aura is just pretty much completely negates this, and any type of hot healing on your own is incredibly strong. So I think this is one of the easier weeks because the three fixes basically don't matter to each other. Usually you have fixes that kind of complicate each other, and you just don't this week, right? Because skittish doesn't matter at all unless people are getting like punted and then mobs are getting killed while that's happening. They might die to it. That's how that hunter died very early. Or the third affix usually comes into play pretty heavily, like, oh my god, trash is a pain this week, and it's, you know, it's fortified. It's fortified, so the trash is even more difficult now. That doesn't matter here. And a very important thing about busting is that it does not actually affect bosses in any way. Not like it would really matter anyway, but when a boss dies, you do not get the bust. So yes, that's a big difference, I think. And I don't know. It doesn't really matter that much because you don't normally go from boss immediately into combat, but the dangerous part here is anytime you go from, you know, your chain pull, like think about Iron Docks challenge mode, right? Where we would chain pull all these mobs and, you know, people would try to stay in combat and pull like 12 plus mobs. You're not going to be able to do that with this affix. And it's going to be a lot more dangerous and a lot more evident as well coming up in the next part of this video here. But it's a pretty sizable thing, and it warranted my efforts of healing. But realistically, I probably could have went damage talents. The only thing about tyrannical weeks is I feel like, you know, even if I do a good amount of damage, it just falls off because I do, you know, all burst basically, and the bosses take so long to die that by the end I've fallen by the tank anyway. So I feel like I might as well not even do it now. I don't actually know. I guess I got hit by the mushroom there, but yeah. Anyway, that was stupid on my part. So don't die there if you guys are watching. But yeah, the actual affix itself is really, like I said, they just don't work off each other in any way. So I don't feel like this is a really easy one for anybody, especially, you know, especially the healer. I think, you know, this affix alone could have been way more dangerous. But as long as your group's not pulling like idiots and, you know, just chain pulling. So we're going to talk about this now. The main, like the real complication here is when it's, you know, like when you're chain pulling and you're killing a mob at the end of the other one. So here let's try to describe this. If you guys did Mythic Il'gynoth, okay, this was a very big problem in Mythic Il'gynoth. There was all those ads that you had to kill next to the eye, and whenever they explode, they effectively had bursting, right? They would put the bursting debuff on you effectively. You would take damage over 4 seconds or whatever, and then it would go away after 4 seconds. But the problems you would often run into is you would kill them a little bit uneven. So say 2 would die and you'd take 2-3 ticks, and then another would die and it would refresh, right? It refreshes every time it stacks, of course. So if you take it for 3 seconds and then kill another mob, then you get a third stack, right? So now you have 3 stacks for 4 seconds, and then 2 more ticks of that, and then you kill another mob. So then you have 4 stacks for another 4 seconds, and this is when it gets overwhelming. And you're going to see that happen here after this boss when we get to the Bloods. It's going to happen, and man, do these fucking guys bitch about it. It's quite funny to watch. So I love capturing stuff like this. This is one of the reasons I love pugging, because this type of entertainment is not, you can't buy this, boys. It's funny as hell, and I love it. But regardless, it's, you know, it's something to be, it's detrimental, and I don't blame them for being upset about it, but the way they overreact is hilarious. So anyway, it's very dangerous when you do something like that. So that's what you really need to watch out for. Anytime you're going to chain pull, or even, you know, you get a lot of fodder, like, you know, skeletons in Lower Kara, all those mobs. anything like that that you know is going to just get crushed, but it's going to die unevenly, you're going to be in serious jeopardy for. Like I said, if you ever take multiple ticks and then it refreshes and you take more ticks and then it refreshes again, that's where you're going to wipe here. But if you just pull, like, you know, most dungeons, people just don't even go with the challenge mode mentality anymore. They just pull pack after pack and whatever, eat the timer. Instead of trying to, you know, back in the day, you would try to maximize CDs, maximize potion usage. We have everything up. Let's pull a giant pull, and if we don't kill it in time, then we wipe and reset it. You can't do that anymore, so people take a much more conservative approach, and I think that's going to make this affix basically a non-factor. If you're doing something like that, where you're pulling like 30 mobs at once and trying to lust and kill it all in one pull, then this is not the affix for it. You're not going to be able to do this week. Any mob that dies after another 4 seconds prior or before another mob dies, you're going to fucking wipe, essentially, because it's just going to perpetuate this dot, and it's never going to come off. And like I said, I don't think there's a way to actually mitigate it or remove it other than just wait it out. And it doesn't seem to affect any boss, anything. I was worried, you know, especially this is another reason I did this dungeon. There's a lot of trash on these bosses, like these flowers. I was like, oh God. Last week, whenever, the flowers were doing, what was it? Fell explosives. The flowers were creating fell explosives when I did that a couple weeks ago. And I was like, dude, they're going to fucking bust as well. Unbelievable. But they don't. They don't put it on. And it's, yeah, it doesn't change anything. So the fights are incredibly easy. So, of course, Tyrannical makes them harder, but the affixes, once again, don't apply to bosses, right? Skittish barely applies to bosses, and busting does not. So it's effectively, you basically have no affixes this week if you do it right. If you do it wrong, it's probably the hardest thing ever. So here we go. Watch. This is going to happen here. So we're going to aggro and pull a bunch of these. Now, this first pack is nothing. We don't do it nearly as poor as we do in the future, but, you know, the group is paying attention. But look at the DK's trying to go fucking full man mode, and he just doesn't give a fuck. And it's stacking, and it's refreshing, and they're dying again, and it's refreshing again, and it just gets really difficult to heal. And then, you know, have to sit there out of combat and heal everyone up, because if you don't, they might die. And there's a time, I think it's on this next pull after we kill these things, where I get to, like, literally, I'm pretty sure I'm at 0% health. So it's pretty dangerous. And of course, you know, you wipe to something like that, it's hard to say it's anybody's but the tank's fault, anybody's but, you know, the people executing. Like, you can't blame the mechanic. You can't say, oh, this shit's too hard. It's entirely in your control. If you do it right, it's effectively nothing. So I think the best way to approach it, of course, is to just do one pack at a time and one pull at a time. Don't try to kill anything. You know, don't try to get overzealous. Don't try to cleave too hard. The only thing that I could say is if you're sure you have good coverage for CDs, like, you know, if you have Druid's Trank up and you can kill all 5 mobs in a pack in one global, like in 1 second window where you kill them all, you get 5 stacks, but you don't get an early tick, because that's the part that really hurts, right? The elongation of the debuff. If you kill 5 mobs across 10 seconds, you're going to take way more damage than if you just killed 5 mobs in 1 second, you know? So there you go. I had to use land hands on myself, and now here's the fucking salt from the chat, guys. Please watch the chat. It's hilarious. And look at that. After land hands, I still almost died. So that was insane. And that's what it looks like. I mean, if you do it wrong, you're done. You're toast. Everybody is going to be in mortal danger, and you're going to have to work very hard as a healer. And that situation, I'm well equipped to deal with as a Holy Paladin. But, you know, I don't know what other healers could have dealt with that any easier. I think, you know, Resto Druid is really, and probably Holy Priest are probably the only ones. Maybe, you know, if you're going to use Spirit Link, I don't know how Spirit Link would interact. So that's a second question for you guys. If you have a question, if I have a question that would be answered on top of, can you mitigate it regularly? Can you mitigate it with something like Spirit Link, or maybe even Devotion Aura? And how do interrupts, or how do immunities interrupt it? Does it stop it entirely? Does it get rid of it? I don't know. And, you know, there's been some things in the past in the game like this, not necessarily in dungeons or fixes, but that actually do make the you know, you still take the damage even though you're immune. So look at this. My God, read the chat, guys. Please just read the chat. Just fucking don't even listen to me. Just read the chat. It is absolutely hilarious. But anyway, one other good thing here is these eggs, the whelps that they spawn, they do not bolster, or not bolster. They do not bust. They do not. It's just a joke. I know you guys are probably like, lol, it's fucking anyway, it's just a joke, but yeah, they do not actually put bursting out, which is a great thing, because this would be a pretty difficult fight coming up. So yeah, it doesn't happen on Drazarian either. The whelps that he spawns Well, actually, I don't know. I think we even get whelps. So you know what? I can't say that definitively. I assume it wouldn't because they're effectively the same whelps that we're fighting right now. But yeah, anyway, so let the salt floweth from this group. It is quite hilarious. I'm just sitting here loving it. But yeah, we're going to end up aggroing that mob as well. So it's pretty... The dungeon really did not go well, but we crushed this. We two-chest it at +12, so it's hard to... You know, and that's really testament to just the dungeon not having any real challenge to it from the affixes. Last week, even, you know, Sanguine was a real pain. They really fucked that. They changed it, made it so much harder. They made it like 8 yards instead, and it was a lot more difficult. But this week, busting really feels like it's undertuned. Now, you know what? I'm going to say that right now, and I guarantee you they're going to fucking buff it or something like that. Busting now does 20% of your health. If that's the case, then this becomes incredibly difficult. If it ever gets higher than 10, it's crazy, right? Because... you know, at 10, you would effectively need 10 stacks equally to kill you. Now, of course, like I said, the 10 stacks don't all have to tick, right? So you can get one stack, then two stacks, then three stacks, and then it gets quickly out of control, right? That's 100% of your health. If you take 2 seconds of 1, 2 seconds of 2, and 4 seconds of 3, that's 100% of your health, right? More than that, actually. So that's when it gets pretty nuts. You don't actually need 10 stacks for 4 seconds because that's just never going to fucking happen. But, or I guess it would be 5 stacks for 4 seconds. But regardless, yeah, it can get really dicey, out of control when you're staggering it. But if they make it any stronger, then it's like you're going to wipe. If you ever kill 2 things at once, you're pretty much going to wipe. But when you kill 1 thing every 4 seconds, it's effectively not an affix for anybody who has any type of hot healing. And there's a lot of ways that the players can mitigate this, you know, the non-healers and tanks as well. Not necessarily, I keep saying mitigate, but I mean reduce the efficacy of the dot. You know, a lot of classes have type of self-healing, like Affliction Warlock. You know, any type of heal that's going to do a few percentage of your health over a few seconds is going to effectively delete the debuff, and that's very good. So... anyway, I think this is, you know, as of right now, I'm saying this, and last week I said something and I changed my mind by the end of the week, but as of right now, as of Tuesday, the first day of I've done the affix ever, I think this is the easiest 4 and 7 combo. And of course, you know, having a Tyrannical is always difficult. I always hate Tyrannical weeks because people always fail at bosses, and it's very punishing, but it doesn't actually change the dungeon's other affixes. So it's almost like it's the best thing. Now, if it was skittish and fortified with this would be pretty dangerous because the mobs are taking longer to kill. So it's more, they have a higher propensity to switch targets. And then people are taking damage from that. And then, of course, the busting is happening and you're getting hit. So, yeah, it could be a lot harder, I think. But I really think, like I said 10 times now, these 3 affixes do not really complicate each other. So... if you're trying to get 10s done on alts, trying to push high keys, I would definitely recommend this week. Effectively, busting doesn't change either. So it seems like the hardest it is on 4, and it doesn't actually get any more difficult. That was another thing I was kind of confused about, and I can't really 100% say otherwise, but I don't think it actually changes per difficulty. Now, if anybody can confirm or deny that, please let me know. That'll be the 3rd question to answer in the comments. But I'm fairly certain that it does not. It always does 10% of your health. And 10% of your health means that if you're really under-geared, it's a pretty dangerous thing. But if you're really well-geared, it's not really that dangerous. As a healer, that is. You know what I mean? Because I could heal up 10... I could heal somebody's health, 10% of their health in 1 global. You know what I mean? I could heal 5 people in 2 globals with that kind of heal. You know what I mean? So it's really easy. It's not in any way challenging if you do it right. But yes, if it doesn't change, then, you know, this effectively does not make, you know, like a 18 or 20 any harder than if there was just no affix. Because you're just, you know, first of all, especially at that level, you're not really going to be AoEing down things in that fashion. Things are going to take longer than 4 seconds to kill. So it actually gets easier. Busting actually gets easier in the higher difficulties just by kind of the way the health moves on mobs. You know what I mean? It's moving upwards, so it's taking longer to kill them. There's nothing else. You know, you're not going to ever run into it. And even though it could complicate it, it doesn't seem to be improving. Like, it's not moving up. Like, say, I thought it might be like 10% at 4, and then it might be like 10.5% at 5, and then maybe at 10 it would be like 15%, you know, something like that. I honestly expected that because when I saw this, I did like a test run, I did a +7, and I was like, I don't need healing talents for this. You know what I mean? But I stuck with them. And then, of course, Tyrannical, like I said, anyway, kind of encouraged me to heal a little bit more. So, on face value, I like any affix that makes me want to heal a little bit more. I enjoy doing DPS as a Holy Paladin. As you see here, I'm still focusing on it. It's still something that I'm doing a good amount of. I'm not doing very high damage, but I'm doing as well as I think I can without any type of damage trinket or bonus from talents at all. And I'm still able to heal everyone up. And I'm gonna need mercy, and I'm gonna need wings, and I'm gonna need all my CDs basically at the right time, because if I don't have them and we kill a bunch of shit way too fast, we're just all 5 of us are gonna die. And it happens. It comes close to happening twice in this dungeon, and it gets a little dicey here and there. Like, that's probably the hardest pack in any 5-man really. That's a really dangerous pack, and because it doesn't happen until they die, it just doesn't change anything. You know what I'm saying, guys? Like, you're effectively dealing with a mechanic that does not start until you're done with the pack, if you do it right. If not, like, maybe on, so that's one place where it could be a little bit harder than if you're talking about like a +20 and you're dealing with a mob pack that has, a lot of health, and they're constantly, there's a lot of mobs, but they're dying slowly, and you're busting every few seconds anyway. It could complicate things, but as of right now, it's effectively something that I just deal with after the pack is dead. It doesn't even factor in when you're fighting the mobs. So and then when the third affix doesn't affect the mobs either, you basically have one affix for a +12. I'm just really surprised by that. I thought this was going to be a lot harder, and in fact, I really thought we were going to get the other new affix, which will be probably the last video I do on this now, which is quacking, and that is going to inflict 2 or 20% of the player's maximum health and interrupt spell cast on themselves and nearby allies. So I expected these two to be paired together, because that felt like, when I was reading this, I was like, yo, these two could be really tough together, and that sounded like something that Blizzard would do based on the way they like to pair the affixes together, but we didn't get it this week, at least. Now, I don't know what combinations we still have. I think there used to be, like, 8 combinations in the past, maybe even more. So if anybody has, got any type of information on the combination list so far, let me know. That's another reason I've enjoyed making these videos, because I can kind of keep track of it myself. But regardless, I'm telling you guys, once again, to go out and do some 5-mans this week. If you have any commentary on anything that I've said about, maybe I'm an idiot, maybe there's something very difficult about this. Once again, I think I said the same thing a couple weeks ago. If you guys are finding difficulty with this, please let me know. I said the same thing with Grievous, especially as healers. If you guys are finding something that's reliably difficult with with the bursting affix, that's something that you just can't seem to work around, let me know. But otherwise, I feel like this is, a very, very trivial situation for most healers. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.